Okay, yeah, so as mentioned, we are going to record this session so we can send it around to folks if you want to go back and review some of the items that we discussed today. But with that, I wanted to start the meeting. So I'm just sharing a brief agenda here about what we're going to be talking about today. So I'll be providing an overview of the fund. I'm going to highlight some changes from previous years. We're going to get into the eligibility requirements and what kind of expenses are ineligible and eligible. And then we're going to go into the application process. I'll provide some examples of some previously funded CEWS projects. I'll point you to some other resources, and then we will open it up for a question and answer period. And I just wanted to send a reminder to please mute yourself when you're not talking. My colleague Ryan will be monitoring the chat box for any questions. Yeah, we'll try to get everything today, but if we can't, I'll certainly follow up with folks afterwards. Okay, oops. So what is CEWS? CEWS stands for the Community University Engagement Support Fund. And the program is a funding program that provides successful recipients at eligible community organizations in British Columbia the funds to participate or to build partnerships and pursue shared projects with UBC. CEWS supports reciprocal community-driven collaborations that advance the needs of community partners while also advancing research and affording learning opportunities for UBC scholars. CEWS aims to remove the financial barriers and prioritizes inclusive engagement so that all communities, especially those that have been and or continue to be underserved, marginalized, or excluded, can benefit. And the CEWS funding is intended to go directly to community partners, which I think is a really cool aspect of the program. So CEWS incorporates the 4 principles of community engagement, which supports UBC's strategic commitment to engage ethically through the exchange of knowledge and resources for everyone's benefits. And I've listed the 4 principles here. So it's reciprocity, flexibility, and openness to learn, transparency, diversity, and inclusion. These 4 principles and their definitions can be found on the community engagement website, as well as the CEWS applicant guide, which is also hosted on the CEWS website. And I can send links to that if people are needing to find that if they have not already. And so these 4 principles informed how the program was developed and are used in the evaluation criteria to assess applications. So we expect that applicants demonstrate how the work proposed aligns with these 4 principles of engagement. So the funding timelines or funding amounts and project timelines. This year, all applicants can request up to $25,000 per project. And if you are awarded funding, we do expect that projects start within 60 days of receiving funds. And the length of project can be up to 18 months. Saying that, we do know that things happen and timelines need to shift. So, you know, if anything kind of gets in the way there, just let us know. So changes from previous years. After a successful 4-year pilot, the fund has received a 5-year funding commitment from the UBC Academic Excellence Fund, and this allows us to have $750,000 available in funding per year, which is an increase of $250,000 last year. So we had $500,000 last year, and this year we have $750,000. Previous applicants to CEWS might recall that we had 2 streams. We had the Explore stream and the Sustain stream. These have been amalgamated into 1 stream this year, with the thinking behind that was just to streamline the application and review process. And as mentioned, all applicants can apply up to $25,000. And another thing I actually failed to mention as I wrote this slide is I'm new. I'm the new program manager. Last year we had the lovely Zoe Crutchen. She's still with UBC. She's moved on to focus on her passion project. So I'm a new person this year. So now we're getting get into the eligibility requirements. So who can apply to CUES? So each CUES application must include one eligible UBC partner and one eligible community partner. So the UBC partner can be based out of either the Vancouver or Okanagan campus. And you can be faculty, staff, or students. And the community partners must be based in BC. They must be registered charities or other qualified donees. And we'll get into those definitions in the next slide. If you are a UBC student applying to CUES, you will be required to get sign-off from a faculty representative. And I just wanted to note here that unfortunately, international partnerships are not eligible for CUES. The project activities must be based in British Columbia. Okay, so due to the income tax acts, UBC can only send funds to registered charities or qualified donees. Not all nonprofits are actually registered charities or qualified donees. And so if you are unsure if your organization is a registered charity or a qualified donee, you can actually look that up on the CRA website under list of charities by typing in the full organization name. Or better yet, you can reach out to me at the address on the screen here, cues.fund@ubc.ca, and provide the full name of your organization. And then I can look that up for you. And then in cases where organizations are found to be ineligible, we're already in touch and we can discuss options. And also, I just wanted to mention here, if the community organization is found to be ineligible, we will allow for CUES funds to flow to eligible UBC departments or units. So that's always an option as well. So what type of partnerships are eligible? So both new and existing partnerships may apply for CUES funding. So new partnerships, are those that might want to define shared interests. They might want to identify knowledge gaps and shared goals, and some example activities that might be carried out within new partnerships are meetings to plan and build relationships, hosting a networking event, doing a needs assessment, maybe some consultations, or co-developing partnership agreements. Existing partnerships are ones that are kind of already in existence. Sorry, just seeing if there is an echo on. I'm told there might be an echo. Are we all good here? Can we hear okay? Okay, I'm going to continue on then. Okay. So existing partnerships are those that might have already been working together. And so some examples of what that might look like is maybe you're collaborating on something and you want to implement the findings of a previous or ongoing collaboration, or maybe you want to translate some research or teaching and learning project results into actions that benefit the community or target population. Some example activities that go along with existing partnerships might be piloting some community level programs or delivering a community level training, co-producing decision-making tools or toolkits, or doing an impact evaluation of a previous project or projects. So the types of activities and partnerships really vary. Okay, so now we're getting into what kind of expenses are allowed. So project expenses must be directly related to the proposed relationship building activities and outcomes, or activities that help support community-based research and or teaching and learning projects. So some examples of eligible expenses include salaries and stipends for project team members supporting relationship activities, honoraria for community members, elders, leaders, and knowledge keepers, training or education fees that are necessary for project members to fully participate in the project, organizational evaluation or assessments, engagement costs, so perhaps there's some travel and accommodation required to run the project. Maybe you need to rent a facility, things like that. Equipment and supplies that are directly related to the relationship or partnership building. And then administrative costs that are associated with running the project. So if you need to work with a financial intermediary, we allow for those kinds of expenses. And I just wanted to note here on the salaries and stipends. So the community partner is allowed to hire a UBC student only if the community partner determines that the student is the most eligible candidate. The fund really isn't designed to support student placements that are part of a mandatory or elective degree program. And it's not intended to be a resource to fill structural or ongoing needs for student placement. So I just wanted to have a note there. But if you have any questions about what's allowed and what's not, just reach out to me and we can discuss there, because I know there's a lot of nuances with projects and project budgets. So examples of ineligible expenses. Again, as mentioned, the fund's not really intended to replace other source of direct research funding or daily operational costs. So things like direct costs of research, those associated with data collection or analysis or academic conferences, presentations, those kind of things. Core administrative costs or expenses for community organizations, such as salaries associated with an organization's daily operations or office equipment, those would be unallowed. Costs of alcohol and retroactive expenses are also not allowed. So the expenses related to the project really should be starting after the project has been awarded funding. But again, if you have any questions around what's eligible and what's ineligible, just reach out to me and we can have a discussion. So now that we've gone through what CUES is and what's allowed and what's not allowed, what is the process on how to apply? So there's 2 steps. The first step is really to develop and submit your notice of intent, which I'm going to refer to as NOI going forward. And you can do this by going to the CUES webpage. There's a big button that says submit notice of intent. If you click on that, it'll bring up a web form that will ask for some really basic information, such as the contact information related to the co-applicant. So that's the main project contact for the UBC candidate, as well as the community project candidate. And then there's going to be like a series of checkboxes to collect information on the topic areas and the community population focus. So if that's applicable to your project, you'll just be using those checkboxes to determine what those areas are. And then we will be asking for a brief summary of the proposed project, which is approximately 100 words. So this is more of an administrative step, and really we're doing this in order to be able to plan and recruit for the review panel. We want to be able to try and find people that have expertise in the area of the proposed projects that are coming forward to CUES. So this is the purpose of the NOI. So the deadline for that is going to be October 21st, 2022. So that's just over 20 some odd days. This is a really short, the NOI process is really quite short. Once you have that brief project description identified, it really shouldn't take you more than 5 to 10 minutes to get that stuff into the form. But I do want to note that the web form can be saved and returned to at a later date if you need to make changes or discuss with your project partner. Okay, so next up, so step 2. So once all the NOIs are submitted by the deadline of October 21st, 2022, all eligible applicants that submit an NOI will be invited to submit a full application. So those invites will go out via email by October 24th, 2022, and you will have until January 3rd, 2023 to work on the full application. So that's just over two months and a bit. And during that time, we will be hosting another information session on November 17th at noon to go over how, to build a strong CUES application. You'll have that time to develop your application in partnership with your co-applicant. And if you have any questions that arise during that time, you can reach out to the office and we can discuss any questions or issues that pop up. The full application questions are available online, and so I do encourage you to check those out early so you can get planning on your project. And just a word on what the application looks like. The full application is a Word document that consists of 7 questions and a budget table. And so we will, after that's the Word document is completed, we ask that you PDF it and then upload it to a web form, which is kind of a similar process to the NOI. We have a bit of a cold. Okay, so after the full project applications are submitted, they will be reviewed and scored by a review panel, which is made up of UBC faculty, staff, and representatives from various community organizations. Each application will be reviewed by 3 separate reviewers, and the review panel will finalize the rankings and make recommendations for funding. So the adjudication process will be taking place in February, and we expect to have the decisions announced by February 15th. And payments to successful applicants will be processed by March 31st. Sorry. Move this out of the way here. So yeah, if you are successful in your application, you will be asked to complete a letter of agreement and submit an invoice to get the payment process started. But as mentioned, we expect to have all of that process completed by March 31st because we've committed to our finance department that we would do that. So that's our target date. And then, yeah, some notes on the evaluation criteria. So the review panel will be assessing applications based on the following criteria, these 6 criteria listed here. And this criteria can be found in the applicant guide, which is hosted on the CUE's website. So I'll just speak briefly to the 6 criteria here. So the community opportunity, what we're looking for there is, does the project address a well-defined community opportunity, priority, or need? Does it articulate a commitment to engage with equity deserving groups? Articulation of the partnership stage. So does it articulate a clear commitment and desire to explore a new relationship? Or if it's an existing one, does it outline how the proposed work will build on or deepen an existing relationship to the benefit of the community partner? The community benefit. So how will the community partner benefit from the project? Does it include a well thought out approach to engagement with the community partner or the population focus pardon me. Academic benefit, how will the project advance an area of academic study, teaching and learning delivery, or knowledge exchange at UBC? Reciprocity and resource sharing, does the project identify each co-applicant's respective and shared goals? Is there a detailed is there a detailed plan of how they'll work together for mutual benefit? And then finally, project feasibility. So is there a detailed timeline of relevant activities and their connection to reasonable and achievable outcomes? And is there a reasonable and appropriate budget that is linked to the proposed activities? So that's kind of the criteria that we'll be using. And again, that can be found in the CUE's application guide on the website. So now that we've kind of gone through CUE's and what the application process consists of, I just wanted to point out a few examples of previously funded projects. So over the next few slides, I randomly just chose a project from each CUE's funding year, just to give a sense of the range of projects that we have supported in the past. So last year we supported a project called Collaborative Monitoring and Cultural Heritage Management in Fire Affected Territories, Revitalizing Roles of the Yekminimin, which is a Shwetmik word for caretakers. And this was a partnership between the Skeetcheston Natural Resources and UBC Faculty of Forestry. And with this project, the community priority was to transform approaches to forest management to center on sustainable land use and reciprocal relationships with the land and all that rely on it. So the project partners work together to identify community priorities for collaborative monitoring, build trust and shared knowledge on ecology, cultural heritage, and fire stewardship in the territory. And then they co-designed and are piloting a cultural heritage monitoring program to support long-term ecosystem restoration and promote opportunities for community land use. In 2020, CUES supported a project called Co-Creating a Shifting Consumer Behavior Program for a Just Circular Recovery. And this was a partnership between the Share, Reuse, and Repair Initiative, which is a project of Makeway, and the other partner was UBC Sauder School of Business. So here the community priority was to grow the circular economy in southern BC. This project aimed to champion the Sharing, Reuse, and Repair Initiative program, which was struggling with messaging that empowers people to change their status quo consumption habits. The project partners built upon a pilot that they had done previously that supported social purpose entities in southern BC to apply a framework called SHIFT, which proved successful in encouraging recycling and zero waste behaviors in southern BC. The project partners co-created persuasive marketing messaging that supports the sharing, reuse, and repair behaviors by consumers. And ultimately, they hope to contribute to a more robust and just local circular economy and culture that supports inclusive job creation and access to sharing, reuse, and repair services, which contribute to meaningful reductions in carbon and material use. And in 2019, we supported a project called the Integrated One Health Services for Marginalized Clients and Their Pets in Vancouver. And this was a partnership between community veterinary outreach and the Faculty of Applied Science, specifically nursing. And here the community priority was to improve the public health of vulnerable communities. The project partners through providing preventative veterinary care to pets in need. The project partners were able to connect pet owners to health and social services. And so this project was building off of a pilot, which was super successful. And this iteration was to expand the clinic and get new partners on board so that they could expand the depth and breadth of services that are provided to marginalized pet owners who faced increased barriers to accessing healthcare. And finally, in 2018, CUES supported the Building and Assessing Celtic Designed Homes project, which was a partnership between the Celtic Tribal Council, UBC Faculty of Forestry, the UBC School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture, Builders Without Borders, and FP Innovations. And this project, within this project, the community priority was to address housing needs for the growing population of Bella Bella. The project partners worked together to advance the Celtic housing strategy to build sustainable, healthy, and culturally appropriate housing in the form of tiny homes. And through this collaboration, an all Celtic construction crew were trained in the latest energy-wise building technologies, which were then applied throughout the building process of the tiny homes. So that's just a quick little snapshot of the various projects that we have supported throughout the span of CUES. As you can see, there's quite a range in the types of projects that are funded through CUES. No two projects are alike, and really, I think it really illustrates how CUES funded projects really are responding to community identified needs. Sorry, my nose is plucked right now, so I'm struggling here. Yeah, this is just the cool thing about CUES. It responds to community identified needs, and I love that about it. So before we move into the question period, I just wanted to shout out a couple other resources that we have within the community engagement team. So first up, I wanted to highlight the Community Partner Help Desk. which is a service for community organizations and nonprofits, groups and individuals that to help them get information and access support and resources to engage with UBC. As we all know, UBC is a huge institution, and it's really hard to know where to start when wanting to engage with the university. So the help desk is a really great resource. So essentially, it acts as a virtual concierge service, and it helps communities navigate the university and facilitate connections to people and units at UBC, and potentially identify programs and resources that support community partners' work. So the contact there is Kat Cureton, and and yeah, you can access that through the community engagement website. And finally, I also wanted to point folks to the Partnership Recognition and Exploration Fund, which we also call the pre-fund. So this fund awards projects up to $1,500 to fill small resource gaps and empower community partners to build reciprocal relationships with UBC students, faculty, and staff. So we kind of think of it as like a mini CUES. It's a super easy application process that you can find on the pre-fund website. And the fund especially welcomes applications that advance equity, diversity, and inclusion, Indigenous engagement and reconciliation, health innovation and community well-being, sustainability and climate action, as well as teaching, learning, and research excellence. And the contact for the pre-fund is Ryan Brown. And again, that can be found on our community engagement website. And so that kind of wraps up the presentation on CUES, and I wanted to open it up to any questions now.
Hi, Shayla. I'd love to go first, as I do have a few questions regarding the presentation. Great. So I guess my first question is, well, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative in what I'm trying to do. My first question is, like, I'm an undergraduate student, so I'm looking to be the student co-applicant for this project. I'm still trying to understand what is my co-applicant role in the scope of the project. And as the student, am I expected to co-lead this project with the organization, or is it possible to have like a step back role as a steering committee? And I'm just pointing that question out as I'm in a situation where a community organization approached me with a project in mind. So they already have they already have like a general idea of what they want to do, but they are looking for a student applicant. So I'm just wondering, in terms of the application, what is the depth of collaboration that the adjudicators need to see for the project to be successful? And does it need to be like a fully like 50% collaboration?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question. Yes, so CUES is intended to be responding to community identified needs and priorities. So the focus really is on like the community benefit. That said, you know, they're generally like students are like can use these projects for their specific research and learning opportunities as well. Mm-hmm. And so really, we do hope that there is a 50-50 split in the efforts that are done throughout the project. And so we wouldn't want the UBC applicant necessarily to be taking like a backseat role. We do want the activities to be split down the middle and like really building mutual benefit for both partners and building reciprocal relationships. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
yes, that does answer my question fully. My next question just is in regards to working with an organization that is not a charity, and there was an option of having the funds move to like a UBC entity, such as a department. And I'm also curious, is there an expectation that the department would do like all the accounting work and the financial work regarding the project, or can the money move from the UBC entity to another organization, and then that organization will do
Yeah.
the accounting work? And could you speak a little bit more to that?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, as mentioned, there is the option for funds to flow to UBC entities if there is no if the community partners are found to be ineligible, but there is always the option of working with another, like a third party organization, which acts as a financial intermediary. So they would be accepting funds on behalf of the project and they would be managing the money. So that's the other option as well.
Yes, and the third entity would have to be a charity.
Correct. A
Yes.
charity or another qualified donee.
Got it. Thank you. And my last question is, sorry, this will be the last one for me.
It's okay.
I'm also noticing just in like previous iterations that a number of projects do end up going to like faculty, and I'm just my question just is around like the distribution of funds in comparison to faculty and undergraduate applications, or like student applications, as I'm noticing that faculty does have a lot more resources in terms of like pulling a project together, in terms of in comparison to like undergraduate or graduate students. So I'm wondering, is there going to be some consideration around like the distribution based on the kinds of applicants that are applying to the fund, like in terms of faculty applications and like student applications?
Yeah, like so having like say like a minimum of X for students and a minimum for faculty kind of thing, like a
yeah, I'm just curious to know if there's any like considerations regarding that. Thank you.
That is a great question. To my knowledge, I'm not sure. I don't think there is any of those considerations. But that said, I'm not sure if that's been raised in previous years, and so that might be something. It's definitely worth considering. As far as I know, that has not been a consideration in previous years. But it doesn't mean it couldn't be in future years. Yeah, I'd have to bring that one back to the team in the review panel for discussion on that one. Yeah, thanks for raising that. I'll make a note of that. Okay. Next question.
There's quite a few questions in the chat that we could cover. Maybe they'll cover a lot of the questions that people might have to ask in person as well. So I can just walk through those if it's the right time, Shayla.
Yeah, that works for me. Unless, yeah, that is totally fine with me.
Some of them are fairly easy to deal with, so I'll ask those ones first, and we can just kind of get them out of the way. So the first is, will the deck be made available to attendees and those who weren't available today?
Yes, the deck as well as the recording will be made available to those that couldn't make it today.
And then Kat already answered the question about whether folks in the Community Engagement Office are available to provide support to consult with faculty about projects and identify community partners. So we can kind of move past that one, but just wanted to reiterate that Shayla is also available in addition to Kat. And then the last of these sort of easy questions, I would say, is about the pre-fund and whether it's recommended for organizations to apply for pre-funding before applying for Qs.
That's yeah, so that's our intention is really to roll the pre and Q funds into one funding suite for going forward for next year. So that's really what the intention will be going forward. But yeah, I think if you have a small project that you're kind of looking to test a relationship out, I think going for pre in it before applying to Qs is a good plan forward, because that will really help you kind of assess how you guys are working together and how you you know, what the project roles might be. So yes, I think that's a really good plan.
And then there's quite a few questions about eligibility and eligible expenses. So I would just take them one at a time.
Okay.
So the first is, would knowledge translation activities also be included as eligible expenses?
Yes.
And then a proposed project that is based with a BC organization, but would have travel abroad as part of the engagement work, would this be eligible in a budget?
I do believe so. We might have to talk about nuances there, but as long as the project, like the outcomes and activities are going to benefit communities in BC, then yes, I think that would be fine. But maybe me and that person can get in touch afterwards and we can discuss the specifics around that. But yes, I don't think that that would be an issue in this case.
And then there's a question about the student placement piece within the eligible expenses. And it's about if a student is engaging in a project, can they be paid for their contributions, which I think you already covered, but maybe covering that again would be good. And then specifically underneath that is, does the answer change if a student is or is not getting credit for a course?
Okay, so students can be paid for their contributions, but again, I just wanted to reiterate there, it would have to, there would have to be kind of a discussion within the community partner who's hiring that student, that the student is like the right person for the job. Just because this is intended, the funds are intended to support the community projects, but if they need to actually have support to carry out the project and they've identified that student as the right person to do the job, then yes, they can be paid for those contributions. And no, I don't think that it changes if they're not getting credit for their work, because really their work would be supporting the work of the community organization and the project, the proposed project. So I don't think the credit piece impacts that answer at all.
And then a question about honorarium is whether those receiving honoraria need to be based in Vancouver or in Canada. Basically in Canada, I would say, given the way the Income Tax Act works.
Exactly, yeah.
And then there's a question. I'm gonna come back to this other question because it's fairly complicated. But I'll go to the one below it first. If a faculty member has been approached by more than one community partner, can they submit more than one letter of interest?
Yes. The only thing that is not allowed is if the same project partners applying in the same year, but the same faculty representative can be part of different projects. As long as they have the bandwidth to do that.
So this is a question about, it's very specific about working with consulates or embassies from other countries, and whether CUES could fund a project that involves members of a diaspora population in Vancouver, and then to welcome students from the country where that consulate or embassy is representing, to visit Vancouver and engage with themes of, whatever themes are in that project. So just basically, can it cover travel for international members of a population to visit Canada? And I'm guessing then there would still be an eligible applicant within Canada for that work.
Yeah, that one, I might have to have a think on that one, but I'm pretty sure as long as the people that are coming are participating in the proposed project and the activities are still benefiting like the communities in BC, like the diaspora in British Columbia, that should be eligible, but I might need a little bit more specifics on that one. But I do think that would be eligible.
Okay, and then the last set of questions here, I think, anyway, I just got a new one as well, but they're about financing and funding availability. So the first one is, does the 60-day project start deadline relate to the decision date or the payment date?
It relates to the payment date, but as mentioned, we do understand that, things get in the way and projects might have to like, stop and start kind of thing. So as long as you're in touch with us, if you need to delay the start of your project, we probably won't have an issue with that. So just keep the lines of communication open if you are experiencing a delay in project start dates. But yeah, it is intended to start within the 60-day timeline. From the funding being sent out.
If a project is awarded CEWS in 1 year, can it be considered for subsequent grants?
Yes, absolutely. We encourage previous applicants to reapply, but I just want to, with the caveat though, just because you have received funding previously doesn't mean you're guaranteed to receive funding the following year. CEWS is a highly popular program and we're massively oversubscribed, and so it's quite a competitive program. And so we just, it doesn't guarantee that you'll receive funding in consecutive years. But yeah, absolutely, you can reapply to the fund.
And then there's a question to clarify the criteria around supporting projects inside Canada, outside Canada, that distinction. The location of project activities are listed as the CEWS fund is not able to support projects outside of Canada, but do not have to be solely based in BC. Is that correct?
Okay, so the project activities really should be based in BC, but we understand that like there's some organizations that might have offices in BC, but their head offices are, located in Ontario or something to that extent. And so in those cases, that's fine. But really, we do the CEWS funding is really intended to be focused within British Columbia. But again, as mentioned, like I know there's nuances to some of the specifics around projects. So maybe we need to have a discussion on what these specifics really are. But yeah, the project funding really is intended to stay within British Columbia.
One more question in the chat, but I'm just going to ask for clarification first. So we can probably go back to people asking questions, speaking as well.
Yeah, does anyone want to speak up in the meantime if they have any questions? I'm just kind of going through the questions here. Yes, I will be emailing out the slides and the recording after the meeting.
Yeah, sorry, Shayla, just waiting for clarification
Okay.
on it. I mean, the question is, it's in the chat. It's if I've already started recruiting participants for my dissertation project, how can a potential partner play a role? As you said, the expectation is for them to be involved in the project 50% too. I take that as if you're asking for a partner that would play less than 50% role, is that okay? Like you can't really, because it's a potential partner, you don't know what the role is going to be. And so how can you guarantee the extent to which they're going to be involved?
That's a good question. Well, I guess so. Yeah, I think I need a little bit more specifics on this particular question, but really, like if you're recruiting for participants, like how can they play a potential role? I guess it's really just helping to define like what are the community needs, what are the community priorities, like having those discussions early to kind of assess like really what the benefit is to the community and getting those kind of roles figured out. That's a way that they can start to play a role if the project's not yet started. So I hope that addresses that question, but yeah, I think I need a little bit more specifics on the question there.
I was just going to add, and this just because I've been so involved in queues for so many years and
Yeah.
heard about how people get involved in the process, that a big part of the application is sitting down with your partner, whether that be a new partner or one you've been working with for a long time, and really hammering out the details of how you will be involved, why you're going to be involved, what the benefit is, what the partner that you're working with does for you in terms of the strengths that they bring to the group. And then making that conversation be the basis for how your application is really pulled together. And that's a real strength that we've heard from previous applicants as a strength for this process for them, is that regardless of whether or not they get funded, they spend some time really working out the details of what their project and partnership is for and how they expect to benefit from it. And so in doing that, you will really surface the ways that you'll work together and the ways that you want to work together.
I couldn't have said that better. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, actually, maybe that's one thing I wanted to reiterate. Just looking at previous feedback from other reviewers is really having a shared voice within the project is important. I know that in previous projects where it's clear that there's kind of just one voice coming through from one partner. Those aren't necessarily the strongest applications, and so we do really encourage having both voices clear in the application. Yeah, so I just saw a new question come in from Timothy. Could we contact you directly for questions? Absolutely. This is what we're here for. That's actually what my next slide was gonna say. Please do not go it alone. We are here to support you. I know that each project has a lot of ins and outs. There's a lot of nuances to each relationship and to each project. So if you ever have any questions, absolutely don't hesitate to reach out, and we can be reached at queues.fund@ubc.ca. And yeah, just let us know how we can help and support you guys as you develop your projects. And I'm super excited to dig in and see all the types of activities and projects that are posed this year. So yeah, it looks like we've covered all the questions. So I just wanted to throw one last prompt out there. If there's any other questions. Oh, looks like. Yes. So a new question came in. Is there a way to see the 7 questions? So that's the full application questions beforehand. No, those are available online. We just posted them the other day. I can actually send those along with the recording and the slides if that's helpful, and that will help you guys prepare in advance. But yeah, you won't be able to submit until after the NOI, but you can certainly look at the questions to see how you can best prepare. So yes, I will make those. I will send those along with the slides and the recording.
I just want to say Shayla's been with us for like 2 months, 3 months now, and had to get to know a very complex program with pretty deep history. And she did an amazing job pulling it all together. So well done.
Thanks, Ryan. Oh, Kathleen, it looks like you have a question.
Actually, I was just clapping. Thank you very much.
Oh. That's a clap. Sorry, I don't know my emoticons that well or my emojis. Okay, well, yeah, thank you everyone for joining this session. It's yeah, it is a pleasure. And we, as mentioned, we will follow up with the slides, the recording, and the application questions. And just wanted to reiterate, do reach out with any questions as early as possible, so that if there's any like kind of things that need to be discussed, we can do that early. So thank you, everyone.